Thor, the god of thunder, is a big deal in Norse mythology. Recently, he's gotten a boost from Marvel Comics, but even before that, he was a key player in Germanic religions. Sure, Marvel borrows some bits, like Thor being Odin's son, and rocking that legendary hammer, Mjolnir. But Norse Thor was way cooler. Thor, whose name means thunder, is Odin, the main Norse god's son, with a Jotun mum representing the earth. Fun fact, Thor's like 75% Jotun, but he's still their top opponent, always defending Asgard. Weird, right? Now, let's talk about Thor's strength and warrior skills. He's the powerhouse among gods, making him a top-notch warrior. But here's the thing, he's not exactly the wisest, and his short fuse often gets him into tricky situations. Thor's got some cool gear to help him out, though. First up, he's got these 2 goats that pull his chariot. He's even known to chow down on them and then bring them back to life the next day with his hammer. Once, while traveling with Loki, they stopped at a farmer's place. Thor, being Thor, slaughtered his goats and shared the feast with the farmer's family. But oops, the son messed up by breaking a bone for marrow. The next day, Thor revived the goats, but noticed one had a lame leg. The dude got mad, gripped his hammer so tight, and decided to take the farmer's kids as his helpers. Also, Thor's not just about the hammer. He's also got a magical belt that doubles his strength and some iron gauntlets for a solid grip. Now, let's take a look at Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, his prized possession. Mjolnir, which probably means lightning, is like the superhero weapon of Norse mythology. It's not just any hammer, it's the symbol of Thor. Now, here's the crazy creation story. Loki, always up to mischief, made a bet with 2 dwarf brothers that they couldn't outshine other dwarves in crafting awesome stuff for the gods. These brothers agreed, and off they went to work. Now Loki, being Loki, tried to mess things up. He turned into a fly and bit one of the dwarves, but the guy powered through. First, they crafted a cool boar for the god Freyr. Then, Loki pulled the fly stunt again, biting the dwarf even harder, but they still made a golden ring for Odin. Loki went for the last trick, biting the dwarf's eyelid until it bled. Ouch! The blood messed with the dwarf's eye, and he had to pause. But despite Loki's chaos, they managed to create the legendary Mjolnir. But thanks to Loki's meddling, the handle was too short for a 2-handed grip. Still, they won the bet and went to claim Loki's head. Crafty Loki said they couldn't take his head unless they cut his neck, which wasn't part of the deal. The dwarves agreed, but stitched up his mouth to teach him a lesson. Now, Mjolnir is something else. It never breaks. And if you've seen the movies, then you know that whenever Thor throws it, it always finds its way back. Once, Thor woke up to a nightmare. His hammer was gone. Distraught, he rushed to Loki for help and shared that it got nicked. Loki borrowed Freya's falcon cloak, morphed into a bird, and soared straight to Jotunheimr. There he confronted Thrym, the Jotun king, who said that he'd stashed the hammer 8 miles underground. But Thor could only get it back if they brought Freya to be his bride. Thor, not thrilled, went to Freya, urged her to play along, and off they went to Jotunheimr. Freya, furious at the idea, shook the halls of Asgard, but duty called. The gods huddled up, realizing Thor needed his hammer to protect Asgard. Heimdall, the ever-watchful, had a bold idea. Dress Thor as a bride and pretend he's Freya. Thor didn't like it and said it was unmanly, but Loki warned of a giant invasion without the hammer. So, they dressed Thor up. Loki played maid, and off they went. Thrym, thinking Freya was there, threw a big feast. Thor, acting as a hungry bride, ate everything. Now, Thrym, confused, was told Freya hadn't eaten for 8 days. building suspense. When Thrym went in for a kiss, he was shocked by Freya's fierce eyes. Thrym called for Mjolnir to bless the bride. Thor saw his chance, grabbed the hammer, chaos ensued, and he got back his prized possession. That's just one of Thor's crazy stories. In another, Odin challenged the powerful Jotun Hrungnir to race back to Asgard. After winning, Odin invited Hrungnir to a feast. Hrungnir, drunk and boasting, threatened Asgard's destruction, wanting Freya and Sif. Fed up, the gods called on Thor, and a duel was set on the border of Jotunheimr, where Hrungnir had all his weapons. Thor, armed with his hammer, was ready for the showdown. Now, let me hit you with a crazy turn in Thor's story. He got dared to a duel for the first time, and he was all up for it. But, whoa, the other Jotnar got a bit jittery. You see, if Thor took down Hrungnir, the rest of the Jotnar would be in trouble. So, he came up with this wild scheme. Crafted a ginormous clay giant, 30 miles tall, and brought it to life with a horse's heart. When Thor rolled in, the giant got scared and, well, let's say had a little accident. The duel kicked off. Hrungnir tossed his whetstone, and Thor flung Mjolnir. Boom! Mjolnir smashed through the whetstone and crushed Hrungnir's skull. But a piece of that broken whetstone got stuck in Thor's noggin till the very end. Hrungnir dropped, trapping Thor's neck under a colossal leg. No god could move it until Thor's 3-year-old kiddo swooped in, heroically freeing his pops. Now, Thor's had more than just Jotnar troubles. His ultimate enemy was the world serpent, Jormungandr. This colossal critter, Loki's offspring, hangs out in the ocean, circling Midgard, our earthly abode. Once, Thor got this odd task from Utgard Loki, a Jotun. Lift a massive cat, they said. Thor couldn't lift it over his head, but did manage to lift it enough to make it release the ground with a paw. But then Utgard Loki revealed that the cat was the Midgard serpent in disguise. And Thor, clueless, had pulled off a seriously impressive feat. Next, we've got another crazy story. But before we get into that, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Divine Chronicles so we can bring you more myths like these. Anyway, so the gods were in the mood for a colossal feast and needed a massive cauldron to brew gallons of mead. That's where Hymir, the Jotun with the perfect cauldron, came in. Thor, always up for an adventure, went straight to Hymir's place to get it. Now Hymir wasn't thrilled to host Thor, the Jotnar slayer. But he played the good host and slaughtered 3 bulls for Thor's dinner. And Thor, with his mighty appetite, devoured 2 bulls that night, leaving Hymir worried about running out of food. So the plan was set. They'd go fishing the next morning for more grub. Daybreak came and Hymir told Thor to get bait. Thor, in true Thor fashion, ripped off a bull's head for bait, ticking off Hymir even more. They sailed into the sea and Hymir caught 2 whales. All good so far. Thor wanted to go further, but Hymir got jittery knowing the Midgard serpent lurked below. Thor baited his hook with the bull's head, tossed it in, bam! The Midgard serpent took the bait. Chaos ensued as Thor battled the serpent. Hymir, terrified. Thor anchored himself so hard that the boat broke. Water gushed in and the serpent's head surfaced, dripping poison. Now what happens next varies in the tales. Thor smashes Mjolnir into the serpent's head, snapping the line and sending it back into the water. Or, scared Hymir cuts the line himself. Either way, the serpent survives and Thor somehow pulls the sinking boat back to shore. And after finally nabbing the cauldron from Hymir's spot, Thor's not in the clear. Hymir and a gang of giants trail him. And you can guess what happens next. Thor, armed with Mjolnir, goes on a giant slaying spree. Even though Thor managed to slay the serpent, he still gets poisoned by its venom. With just 9 steps, Thor collapses and meets his end. Now, throughout centuries, people have revered Thor as the quintessential warrior. Powerful, steadfast, always ready to shield his home and people. Sure, Thor might lean a bit more on muscle than wisdom, but when push came to shove, the gods often relied on him for protection. Norse warriors had Thor on speed dial, believing that thunder and lightning were signs of Thor duking it out with the Jotnar. Despite how modern culture might have twisted the thunder god's image, Thor remains an enduring legend, one of the mightiest warriors in myth. But if you want to learn about some more cool mythology, make sure to click on this next video.